How do I mute? Mute.
Hello.
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 Hi, Paul.
Hello, hello. I'm gonna, we have a lot of people in the room. Arvin, is your mic enabled?
Yes.
I'm gonna shut off mine and we
What
can.
I do is probably dial into the same thing from here.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. So a lot of people are just gonna go on mute right now.
Test. Can you guys hear me? Good.
Hi, Deborah. It's
Hi,
Larissa.
Lisa.
Guys, hear us over the Polycon?
Yeah.
We have all the whatever we are getting lot of emails for all these, for example, for clubs, and they are putting in game shutter right now. They, that's what even yesterday we took those files from the game shutter.
Somebody mute.
Is it audible?
Can everybody on the phone, can you hear us over the Polycom?
Not really, not clear. Yeah, cannot hear. Hello?
So today we are going to discuss about what are the design patterns and what are the design patterns available and how to use it. Before that, what is a design pattern? A design pattern is a design pattern is a solution to a problem, solution to a software problem. So all the design pattern is going to talk about everyday activity in the software development. What are the common scenarios normally we faced in the development and how to fix or resolve those issues by following some standard patterns. So before going to that, let me give me some basics about the object-oriented concepts. So I guess everyone aware of what is a abstraction, what is encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism. So what is polymorphism? Actually all these 3-4 pillars are the pillars of the object-oriented concepts. So what is polymorphism? Polymorphism is a concept which is going to talk about encapsulation is a concept which is going to talk about the how to hide the information, and abstraction is going to talk about it is a kind of encapsulation but how to expose the necessary information by hiding the unnecessary information to the users. That is the basic concept of the abstraction and the encapsulation. So why we need to hide the information? Because the information is so sensitive, so we don't need to expose all the information to the public or to the clients. So definitely it is required to hide the unnecessary or sensitive information to other users. And next is the inheritance. Inheritance is one of the important concept in the object-oriented. Why we need inheritance? If suppose inheritance is not there in the place, what are the problems normally we will face? So all these inheritance is going to talk about how to avoid the duplication of the code and how to avoid the redundancy of the code when you are designing a application or designing a software. So inheritance is going to talk about creating a specialized class from a generic class. That means for example you have a base class where you are going to define all basic properties or basic methods where we want to reuse them, and a child class is going to inherit that without rewriting the same logic, rewriting the same methods. They can reuse them by inheriting the methods or functions or properties from the base class. So that is all the inheritance. What is polymorphism? Polymorphism is also one of the important concept in the object-oriented. So poly means many, morphs means is a shapes. So many shapes, that means a method can exist in a many shapes or a class can exist in a many shapes. So C# or a Java is going to provide us a basic two methods. One is method overloading and method overriding. So using those we can achieve the polymorphism. So at the runtime we can decide what are the method needs to be called and which method is going to take care of the action needs to be performed. So that is called runtime polymorphism. So these are the basic concepts of the OOPS. So after that there is another thing called interface. What is interface? So interface is a contract between two entities. That means how two distinct entities going to talk with each other, because they need to have some kind of a common interface so that they can talk with each other. So using the interfaces, if you are designing the applications using the interfaces, then it is easy to replace the existing applications or easy to replace the existing functionalities. Say for example you have a dependency injection. So runtime you want to inject the functionality which you want to be expected without changing the code. So once you implemented a components using the interfaces or abstract classes, it is easy to inject the implementation classes. So this is just a basics for the object-oriented concepts before going to the design patterns. So let me talk about the design patterns. So actually design patterns are divided into like three types. One is creational design patterns and structural and behavior. Under the creational design patterns, all going to talk about like how to create objects. So mainly like heavily used design patterns are singleton factory and abstract factory. So what is singleton pattern? If anyone give me like idea, like so that we can start from there. And
You can only create one instance of the class
yeah,
at a particular time.
yeah. So singleton pattern is going to talk about like creating only one instance, or like a single instance of a class can exist, so that which is going to serve all the subsequent requests. So how to achieve that, and before that, why we need a singleton class. Say for example, I have a load balancer. So in a load balancer, we can add as many servers we want, or we can remove as many servers we want. That means the load balancer needs to be initiated once, then only it is going to keep track of all the existing servers, or keep track of the existing state information. If I am going to recreate my load balancer every time, then it is never going to maintain my state information, right? So in the load balancer is the one of the example, or like a configuration manager. That means, say for example, I have like a commonly or heavily used configurations for an application, and I want to reuse them across entire my application. So because I don't want to recreate my configurations every time, I want to reuse the same object, because object creation is also a costly process, because it is going to allocate a memory. If I are going to recreate a object in a C# or in every program language, it is going to allocate a memory, and next time a garbage collector is going to take care of all the memory locations to free up the memory. So instead of creating and maintaining unnecessary objects, sometimes it is required to have only one instance should be exist in the memory, which can be reused across all the subsequent requests or across all the applications. So that's why application manager is also one example for that. Or I have an application class, say where I want to maintain who is logging to my application, and how many times they logged in, and how many times they try to log in, how many times they disconnected. So I want to maintain all this state information for my application. That is also one very good example for the singleton class. So that means if I want to maintain the state information across my whole application lifecycle, the application instance should be only once, right? So yes, session listener is that is going to per one session, one request. Yeah. Yeah. So how will create a singleton class? How will make sure that only one class is going to, one instance for a class is created? Any idea?
Check for the object, and if the object is null, then only we create the instance.
Yeah, how will make sure that? Actually, Java or a C# by default providing us is a static keyword. So if I'm going to place a static keyword in front of a class, it makes sure that my application is going to create only one instance for that class, right? Then what is the problem if suppose I'm going to use a static keyword in front of the class? So if anyone is using a static keyword, means you are giving the responsibility to application. That means you don't have any control over the class. You cannot control the class creation at the runtime. Second thing, say you have a third-party components. You want to pass that class as a parameter to the third-party components. Static classes we cannot pass as a parameters. So static is one of the example given by the, static is the one of the way creating singleton, but that is not the right way because static has like so many limitations. So second, then what is the other way? The other way is like to make sure that restrict everyone to create the instance of the class. That is the first thing we need to do. Second thing, create a factory method to that class and everyone allow them to call that factory method. Let's give the responsibility to that factory method to make sure that only one instance is created, right? So by using those two things, we can restrict that the class is the instance is created only once. How we'll make sure that, how we are going to remove the access to all the clients or the users to create an instance of a class? How we'll remove the, make it private is, or make it protected, make it private so that no one create an instance of that class.
Or constructor can create its class.
Constructor you have to make that as a private or like a protected. Actually, there are like many ways we can create a constructors, right? By using like a accessibility. Even static constructor, what static constructor does is like it is going to helpful when you are using like a lazy creation. Lazy creation in the sense when you are going to refer that class, then only that class instance is going to create. Otherwise, it won't create any instance for that class into the memory location. So that is one of the lazy way of creating a class. From .NET 4.0 onwards, so they introduced like a new class called lazy. So when you are assigning any object to that lazy, when you are going to call that class, then only the lazy is going to make sure that then only it creates a instance for that class. So just giving like a overview of the what are the different types of constructors and what is the lazy.
Now with the new constructor, it won't be created. We don't have new here. Because whenever we are creating a constructor, we use new, right? So
yeah, if you are using new means, it is internally going to call the constructor, default constructor.
right.
So if you are making that as a private, that means no one will have access to create that constructor.
Right, but
Lazy means it is not like that. So lazy is different. So when you're creating a singleton, I'm talking about just singleton. So in the singleton, you cannot give that as lazy, right? You cannot give the access to the constructor. So let me, actually I have created few where is that? Lazy is going to make sure that it creates only one instance. Next time subsequent request is going to serve the already created object. It's a kind of maintaining kind of a object pooling kind of concept. Create an instance for a class and keep it there. For subsequent requests, they don't need to create again the same instance. They can reuse the already existing instances. Oh, cache is different. Cache is like it is going to like a allocate into a memory again, right? Cache internally it is going to implement either like a hash table or some memory location pattern.
yeah, like all those objects are kind of it's created only once.
Yeah, but before the lazy they implemented, we used to maintain it in a cache and we'll check it in the cache, and if suppose that doesn't exist and return the newly created object. So but right now they already introduced the lazy keyword. We don't need to maintain all those things now. Just put a lazy keyword and put whatever the class you want to initiate. Just refer that class and it is going to create an instance for you. Like for subsequent requests, it is going to serve the same request, same object. Okay. Actually, I already created this, so let me comment out this. In C#, if I'm not specifying any like a access modifier, which is a internal.
So I have a question, like singleton, is it a keyword or it's not?
Singleton is a pattern.
So
We
can still use that as a name for the class?
Yep. Any class you can make that as a singleton class. The scenarios which I explained is what is the load balancer, one is the application manager, one is the configuration manager. Because
Your question was that a reserved keyword?
Right.
But no, it's not.
no, it's not.
These are all patterns for our understanding. We just use that word as a
So,
class.
because earlier you said load balancer, right? So that is also a singleton class, right?
It should be a singleton class, right? Actual design patterns are not specific to any like a language or a technology. It is a pattern you need to follow in order to like a solve the issue according to the situation. Say for example, my intention is I need to create only one instance for this class. So actually in .NET or in a Java, all the class, what is the base class? So base class is the object class. So object is going to provide us some methods to in order to like a compare or in order to get like a uniqueness of that object, which is a get hash code, and to make sure that both values are equal or references are equal, not to convert to string. So just giving like a brief overview. So equal in .NET, what is double equal? Equal is going to like a compare two objects are belongs to the same reference or not. So see, so I created two instances here. These two instances are not same. So my goal is I need to create the instances. Even though any client is going to create this class, I need to make sure that only one instance is created for that class. So equal is what it is doing is it is going to just compare whether the both objects are belongs to the same reference or not. So both are not belongs to the same reference. So as we discussed, so I want to restrict the class first to create the instance by its own. That means nobody can call this new keyword and call the instance. So for that, I can make sure that my class is like a constructor is protected so that no one can create this instance of this class. So it is saying like a cannot access the protected constructor. That means I'm removing the permissions to create that instance of that class. And second thing, I'm making sure that I have some factory method where everyone can call the factory method without creating instance. In order to make sure that I need to have some factory method. It should be static because I'm not creating the instance of the class, but still I want to access a method on a class. So that's why I'm making this as a static. So and also I'm maintaining a private property as a singleton, which is a null. So very first time anyone is calling this, I'm making sure that singleton is the null. That means the object is null. Then only create the instance of the class. If it is not null, then return the already created instance. This is the actually basic way of creating the singleton. Actually, there are many ways creating a singleton class. So right now it is true, means like these two instances are referenced to the same memory location or same instance. So right now I made this class as a singleton class to making sure that this instance is created only once for the all my requests. Actually, we can create in many ways a singleton class. This is the one of the way of creating it. So what is the problem within this is like if you go with the multi-threading application, if suppose two threads are accessing this, can simultaneously can come here and they can check it. Singleton is null. And they can try to create an instance, still they can achieve it, right? So that means I need to make sure that this is like a thread safe. Yeah, I need to make sure that it is synchronized. So how will I do that is there are like a different many ways. So one is like a kind of object locking. I will create a one static object. I will put a double locking technique. Double locking technique means first I will check the instance and private static object what is the syntax for lock? Lowercase. Lock. I'm going to lock this object so that even the two threads comes here and first they will check singleton, they will come here, one of the thread is going to get the access, and if again they are trying to come here, again I will make the double checking. If again this thing is null, this is one of the traditional way of doing double checking to make sure that my instance is created once.
I know it's a C# code, but wondering how the first if condition will not execute for the second. It will not be come inside, right?
Sorry? First one, like I say, you have two threads. They are trying to access. Two threads came here, and one of the thread is like got the access, lock the object. So other thread is like waiting. So say for example, then they both are came here. One thread is already created the instance, and so the second thread is going to use the same instance in case it is not created. It is, yeah, if you go for a multi-threading, then it is helpful. Sorry? Which thread is going to access that first lock? It's going to lock that object, the other thread will wait. It won't access. The lock is going simultaneously. Also, lock is going to they already implemented kind of a mechanism. They can give access to only one thread, even though like multiple people are accessing that at the same time. It will give access to only one of them, and remaining things will be in a line. Once that one is finished, once it is completed from this loop, then only second thread will lock that. Okay.
But when the first thread is in the inner loop in a sense inner the condition, but why did it come into the instance is already created, right, by the first one?
First one is created. How the second one will know that?
Okay.
Again, we are like it is a sanity checking. Again, we are checking for the second thread to make sure that the instance is already created or not.
Yeah. In Java, like it's little multiple steps. Like first you remove
thread.sleep means that is for demo purpose. If I'm making that as thread.sleep means it is demo.
Yeah, if somebody is accessing that, so others have to be notified with the sleep or something. Then you get that thread.
Yeah, even .NET is also having that, but we don't need to do here because it lock will automatically put all the remaining threads in the sleep. Even .NET also you can make a sleep and you can invoke them once it is completed. But you don't need to do it like explicitly.
I think it's present
but I think this will come only when we are using Singleton. When we use other logic or other pattern, I think we have to.
Yeah, that sleep is different. So that is a completely different concept. When you want explicitly set that thread to sleep, but that is a different concept. Actually, this is one of the way of doing Singleton. There are like many ways. I can make this as a lazy. I can make sure that that instance is created only once per that. So any questions in the Singleton class? Huh? Next pattern is the factory pattern. So factory pattern is one of the pattern heavily used across the software development. So we'll create an interface and we will allow the child classes or derived classes to create the instance of the object, so that it is like going to allow us to develop the things using like a decoupling kind of mechanism, so that there won't be like a tight coupling between two entities. So that if it is a loosely coupled means which can be easily replaced or easily interchanged. Okay. So factory pattern is like create an instance of several derived classes. So for that we need to provide an interface first, which object you are trying to initiate, and let the derived classes to create that instance of that interface. Say what is the best example for the factory pattern is say for example, right now I created an application and where my data sources are different. Okay, so all my things are is like I want to create I want to create a data provider where I can perform insert, update, delete, add, insert, update, delete. Okay, but my data providers are different. So say for example, if I don't have like a factory pattern in my development, so what is going to happen? Say right now I'm using a SQL Server or like some Oracle, or like I'm doing some kind of a unit testing where I don't want to go for like either one of those databases. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create an interface by providing just the operations which needs to be performed, like a insert, update, delete, remove. And the implementers will be the SQL data provider is going to be implement on the SQL databases. Oracle provider will be implementing on the Oracle providers. If any other NoSQL databases, they are going to implement in their data providers. But my application is always going to expect that only that interface. Say I data provider. So my application is always going to expect like a iData provider, how to interact with the iData provider. But the implementations are going to be varied, so that I no need to change the code in case my providers are going to change. That is one of the classical example of the implementing the data providers in the application, so that we don't need to like modify the code every time in case of changes in the data providers. So right now I took this like a piece from the document. So let me this is like just a UML diagram of the factory class. So this is my product class. This is my product class where it is going to define all my interfaces are like going to return that product class from the creator. Okay, that means my product is going to be like as I said, like a SQL or a Oracle. It is going to just specify iData provider. It is not going to specify whether it is a SQL, Oracle, or Mongo or any other database. It is going to just specify iData provider. So my concrete product are going to be the concreted database implementations, like for Oracle implementation, SQL implementations, and the MongoDB implementations. But my creator, where my application is going to always rely on the creator. So the creator is responsible for returning the product, which is going to be iData provider. So that my application always relying on that iData provider instead of on the direct concrete object. So the concrete creators are going to be the implementers for the creator, so that they are responsible for what is the best one in order to serve for the application, depending upon the configuration or depending upon the parameters. Okay. Any questions in the factory, so that I'm showing the code? Say I have a product, I have a concrete product which is going to extend this product. Concrete product is like say for example real product. Say if it comes like a data providers, which is going to be either SQL data provider or Oracle data provider, and the creator is going to have some factory method. It is going to make sure that which of the right thing I need to return to the application or a client on the runtime. So my concrete A is the child class, which is extending the creator, which is responsible like extending that or overriding that factory method and returning the concrete product A. Say for example, if anyone is like using this concrete creator A, they are going to get the SQL. So if it is going to Oracle, say let me put it in our like example, so that might be useful. Say I'm creating a data provider. SQL data provider, or let me put Mongo provider. I have like this is the factory method which is going to just return the data provider. So if any like some my common methods here, like say for example public void. These are the basic operations we can perform. Add, delete. Okay. So creator is going to just give me the factory method. Say what is concrete creator means. Say for example, so let us take this an example. Maybe that is a keyword. So I have a data provider where am I expecting that all my application is going to perform the operations based on the data provider. Add, update, delete, remove. So I have a SQL data provider, I have a Mongo provider, which is going to inherit that the data provider. They are going to implement their own way of performing actions when you are providing something. And I have a creator. My creator is having one factory method which is making sure that he is going to always return a data provider. So my concrete Mango creator is going to give me the Mango provider, and the SQL creator is going to give me the SQL provider. So that let's take this is a client. Mango creator. So I'm just like calling like a corresponding thing, create factory method, so that I will always get the DB provider. So I can create how many creators I can have. So runtime I'm deciding which one I need to be. So I'm giving the child classes to deciding which needs to become create. So it is created MongoDB provider. So if I can perform, my application is always going to expect like a data provider, so that any changes in the database layer, it is not going to impact my application layer, because I implemented the factory pattern, so that my all operations are going to perform only on the data provider instead of on the directly coupling to the target SQL or like Oracle or some other things. So this is one way of implementing the factory pattern. The scenarios where we will implement the factory pattern is like a caching. Say my application, I have to create one factory method which is responsible for create the cache object, but it should not specify which cache object I need to store. Say right now I can store it directly on the request cache or a session or like a regular cache object or application or like a Microsoft cache blocks. So it is going to just hide or abstract that information. It's just going to give me cache this data. But the implementations are, leave the implementation to the subclasses. So where to store those cache information. So which is the one of the common example for the factory pattern. Even Microsoft is like, if you go for SQL data client, Oracle client, so they implemented like similar kind of a pattern internally.
That's how ORMs work. It seems too. Like
yes, yeah.
Angular suggests you do everything related to database, or basically get APIs and put APIs up. All the API calls are suggested to use factory pattern or service pattern, which is singular.
Yeah, yeah. It is not like a for like just C#. Even JavaScript also we can make sure that we are like a writing like a loosely coupled code, so that we can easily replace the bits and pieces. And the second advantage with the loosely coupled is if you like in a product development, so normally we cannot deploy the changes every day. Full deployments, normally we won't do like a full deployments. We'll do the partial deployments. Say something is like we improved and just we need to deploy only that feature instead of like fully deploying that. So all those things will happen behind the scenes. They implemented the factory pattern, or like they implemented the application development design in such a way that it should be loosely coupled, so that I can replace or I can enhance the things without changing the existing application architecture or application code. So this is the example for the factory pattern. Any questions on this, or you want me to give one more example on that? Or if you want to try like one example, say I want to create a document where a document contain a resume or results. A document and results can be a pages. So if you want to write that, and you can take that an example, because right, because this is a heavily used pattern across everywhere. Next one is the abstract factory. The abstract factory is going to what is the main difference between factory and the abstract factory is abstract factory is going to create family of objects. Family of means like going to create related factory objects. It is one layer top of the factory, and it is going to make sure that it is going to create a related factory methods or related factory objects. Say for example, you are like working on an application development or like in a system development in organization. You can hide all the information where it can contain like what is the software, what is the applications, and what are the other things we are using. We can easily create them. That means you are just abstracting internal details of the related information, which is exactly same as factory. So any questions on the factory? I can show you the example. Any questions?
Questions on the regular factory?
Yeah, what is the difference between factory and abstract factory? And
So when we implement the same thing, abstract factory, the example which you gave for the SQL provider or Oracle provider, so how do we get there? Like the factory of
factory is going to just say like what are the things you want to create at the runtime, or let the subclasses to create the instance of the actual implementation. Factory, what it is going to say is you have like a multiple kind of those factory things. You can put all together as a package and use that as a abstract factory. Multiple factory, it is going to contain multiple factory methods, or like a family of related objects, you can say that. So let me show you an example, maybe better understanding.
Actually, we muted everybody, so I don't know if somebody is ready to ask, but
They can type.
yeah, there's no question.
Actually, it seems like I disabled this. Say for example, I'm just going to talk about like some basic example what we are right now. Say I have like a application factory. So application factory is going to have two more factory internal class. One is XML factory, one is like a database factory. Okay, that means it is like a packaging of related objects or family of objects. So my IXML factory is again is an interface or like abstract class which is going to specify export XML. So there are like a multiple implementers are there. One is XML serialization manager, which is responsible using XML serialization to export the XML. Okay. One is XSL manager, which is going to like a responsible for exporting the exporting the XML using XSLT. Or if you have another manager way of implementation, we can export that XML using our own custom way of doing it. Okay. And iDatabase factory, so which is going to represent, say for example, AAMC database and Oasis database. And my AAMC application is going to extend the application factory so that it should implement the iXML factory and iDatabase factory. If suppose iXML factory, it is going to return the XML serialization manager, it is going to return the AAMC database. So Oasis application is going to extend the application factory, which is going to like a same factory methods, but it is returning is the XSL manager. That means different way of implementing its own. And it is returning OASIS database. So that what is happening here is like a, I'm not giving like a full control or like a to flexibility to the person who can like a write like a hard coding. Okay, this is my application, this is my thing, I have to use it. So on the runtime, so I'm maintaining all these things as a reusable components. So any application wants to use this, say for example, okay, they want to like a runtime decide which application needs to be instance created, kind of a portal. So portal is not going to specific to any application. Portal is going to be a common code base. On the runtime, it is going to decide based on the configuration that is a, whether it is a AMC application or it is a OASI application. So based on that, I'm going to create the instance and I'm going to perform the rest of the operations. So right now I'm just giving like a concrete example. Instead of this, so what are mine is, okay, so my application factory is application factory is going to be new OASIS application. Say if suppose my application factory is going to be say AMC. Actually it is creating like a going to hold a family of related things. Say for example, if I'm going to use this, next one is database. So I want to export XML. So why I am showing two is like a, my way of writing is going to be the same. That means my application is going to work based on just interfaces, not on the concrete classes or concrete methods. So if it is a runtime, it is going to decide based on the type which one needs to be created, which instance needs to be created. and also I have a creator. It can, based on the type, it can create an instance, but right now I'm directly creating myself. So let me run this. Sorry. So first XML is generated by the XSL manager. Second XML is generated by the XML serialization manager from the AAMC database. First one is the OASIS database. That means this is just like a stubs. If you want to implement that way, we don't need to change the code every time. So just it always going to depends upon the abstract factory. Abstract factory is going to responsible for initializing which are the things required for that application, so that we can reuse them. So normally what we'll do is just creating this. Let's be new creator. Sorry. So I'm giving the responsibility to my creator class. So if you are in the configuration, you are specifying it is XML. Creation for AAMC, it is going to create the corresponding things for the AAMC. If it is for OASIS, it is going to create OASIS registration. So that runtime I can dynamically decide, instead of like a rewriting or replacing the existing code pieces, I can decide and just call my creator, pass what is the application type. It is going to decide what is the abstract factory you want to get. So that abstract factory is going to contain all related classes, like related managers, which are required in order to do the or perform the operations on the application.
Is it fair to say that it's a factory of factories?
Yes, factory of factories. Mother of factories. Any questions? Okay. Next one is a composite pattern.
One question. Can you share the source code
Sure.
with
Yeah.
everyone afterwards?
Yeah.
In case there are questions being asked.
Yeah. Sure. So composite pattern, which is also like one of the heavily used patterns across the software development. So composite patterns is going to talk about like how to maintain like a composite data as well as the regular data in a one tree structure. Say for example, I want to maintain a organization structure. Department can have someone and someone under can have someone. So that is a tree structure. Like a countries and states, counties. So I want to maintain a single data structure where I can store countries, where I can store counties, where I can store towns or cities, because some of them are composite. Because if you take like a state is a composite of state is a composite of counties. A county is a composite of towns. A town is just a single element. So that if say for example I have that case where I want to maintain the same data structure, where I can store or where it is going to treat city same as the county or county same as the state, then only I can store all those information. What is the advantage of that? Say if you want to perform a query, say give me like all the states within that country or give me all the counties within that state, vice versa. This state belongs to which country or the state belongs to which county. So that once you have that kind of a data structure in place, you can do like a recursively, or you can go through like top to bottom, bottom to top. That is the main goal of the composite pattern. Any questions on that?
So it's setting up the data structure that way?
Yeah, it is a structural. So you are structuring up the data structure where I can hold composite of the elements or single element. Actually, this one we did like through .NET way of doing it. So in .NET is a generic class where it can hold the tree node, and again it is going to have the child of the tree nodes. Then only I can store a tree node as well as childs to the childs or parent to the child. Okay. So in this example, I'm just adding the shapes, so that the tree node I'm going to add a shape, and for that I'm going to add like a complex objects. I'm going to add to the single object to also do that. I can remove or I can delete. So you can look into the code and ask me the questions because we have only 15 minutes left. So
Shape is a class that you created?
Shape is a class. So I want to, because in order to like maintain like a composite pattern, there should be a common base class where all the child or other elements needs to be implemented. Say for example, county, country, city, we need to have some kind of a place. All these are places, so that should be some abstract class or like some interface. All these classes can implement, so that I can refer all of them by using that interface or by using that abstract class. Okay. And next design pattern is observer pattern. So observer pattern is like a very helpful pattern. We'll come across many situations in the development life cycle. So for example, I want to send an email when some status has been changed to something else, or I need to trigger someone else who are like interested in that some events. So observer pattern is going to talk about how to send the information to the people who are interested in that topic or interested in that subject. So observer pattern is going to talk about how to design the classes so that we can achieve that. Normally in the C# we have delegates and the events. Using that we can decorate the classes. First of all, before going to the code, any questions with the observer pattern, because it is straightforward.
I think another name for this is subscriber pattern.
Subscriber, yeah. Subscriber pattern. Who are like subscribed to that event, they are going to get some alert or get information. So normally, almost all the development life cycle will get this kind of situations. Say I have a stock. So stock is my interface or abstract. For here it is abstract class. It contains like a change event. So any stock changes, it is going to trigger an event. Any changes in the stock, it is going to trigger an event. So IBM is implementing the stock. That means it is a concrete subject. So the people who are interested in IBM stocks, they want to get the alert or like they want to get some updations. It is a subscriber pattern too. So investor is the who is the I can say subscriber, because he is interested. He want to get an update. So he is invested in the IBM. So you want to get some alert message, some stock is changed. So you want to implement update method, because this update method always should be look like signature should match with the delegate, because delegate is going to call the method when that event is fired. If the signature is not matching, then it won't trigger. That's why we need to have some interface where I can call back that method on the runtime. So say for example IBM is a stakeholder. So I'm attaching the investor, different banks who are interested in that stock. So when the price changes, here I'm raising an event, because they are interested in that event. They are going to get in a message. Just look at the code and ask me the questions. So notified to that this guy and notified to this but share.
Where were you writing to the console? That's inside the event handler?
Inside of the event handler, yeah. Update. So this is also one of the heavily used pattern.
And can you just show the code that actually pops this event one more time?
Yeah, sure. Actually what I'm doing here is like creating IBM and attaching the subscribers who are interested in that stock. So it is going to just attaching, because in delegates you can attach multiple delegates, multiple things to one delegate. Once that event is fired, it automatically triggers the event to all the listeners who are interested in that. That is the default behavior of the delegates. So I'm just setting the price.
Can you put a breakpoint inside the...
Yeah.
You know what's happening.
So it is triggering an event. So once the event is fired, it is going to call the corresponding investor updated method on the runtime so that he will be notified. So you can perform whatever the actions you want. Same thing. So it is the same thing. Next thing is server is done. Chain of responsibility. So this is also like one of the pattern we can use it in the software development. So this pattern is going to talk about if we are going to send a request, how to pass that request into the subsequent objects. Instead of the caller is going to say, okay, send this request to that object, again receive that response, again send the response back to another object. Instead of doing like that, you can implement this pattern, pass the request. That pattern is responsible for sending that request across many objects in a chain. So this is chain of responsibility. So say for example, right now I created one example. For chain of responsibility. So I have a change request. So at present I have a change request. The change request needs to be passed across many people. So when I'm submitting a change request, so that it goes to the database administrator to make sure that all the required information is attached to the change request, and it goes to the next release engineering manager to make sure that relevant information is there, right? Next it goes to the director to approve the change request. So this is one of the good example for the chain of responsibility, because it is passing through different entities. So the client is just responsible for just initiating that request, then my design should be capable of sending or passing that request across many entities. So I created one change control event arcs. It is going to contain is database scripts included, is rollback scripts included, is system diagram included, is test scripts included. So is my approver who is going to approve my request. Here the approver can be a database administrator, it can be a release engineer, or it can be like a director, because it needs to pass through many people, right? So if one of the information is missing, anyone can reject that information. So right now it is a director, so director is going to check system diagrams are included. So he is going to change request has been approved. If suppose system diagrams are not included, it can reject it. The similar way, database admin check for database scripts are included. If it is included, then pass to the successor to the next level. So the next level person is also going to verify that some information is included or not. So right now I created my change request process. So David is the director to approve it, and Sada is the database administrator, and Ajit is the release engineering manager. They have to approve my change request. So I'm just setting up the successors. So Sada's successor is Ajit. So once Sada is verify that my change request has all the database scripts, it should go to the Ajit. If Ajit is going to verify that what are the relevant information, it should go to the next level. So
those two lines on line 22 and 23, if you want to get really sophisticated, you could use the composite pattern you talked about before,
yeah,
to set up a
mix,
hierarchy
yes.
that you're doing in the chain responsibility.
You can mix all the patterns together whenever it is required. So I'm sending the request. First request is rejected by the release manager. So he's saying please include the database scripts. So because I already said database scripts are included, if suppose I haven't included database scripts, what it is going to do is it is going to start a request, raise the event. So it is not included. So in first process step itself it is failed. So request rejected by the database admin. Comments are include those things. So similar way, if suppose I included everything, I included rollback scripts to true. System diagrams, so I'm making system diagrams as false. It is passing like a step by step. If I see the response, rollback scripts are included, database scripts are included. Let me check what are the things. Let me take this out. So my change request has been approved. These are the one of the common pattern. We can use it like in a sequential basis. Say if you want to generate some XML also, you can use this. Give the responsibility to for each one and pass it to the next node and create its own things.
Can any of those subsequent people here perform the same responsibility like when Sada and Ajit have the same method?
No, they have same method, but implementation is different. So Sada is going to check for database scripts and he is going to check for some.
Right. So once that is crossed, now the second person in the queue, can he also do the same job? Can Ajit also do the same check?
Same check means it is not same check because it is once it is done, right?
Yeah, it is not associated with the down benefit.
Yeah. Once someone is approved means again the next level they don't need to verify that the one which is approved by is right or not.
I mean, technically, there's nothing stopping you from doing the check again, but it's
Yeah.
not going to.
Not necessary.
Yeah.
But if I try to assign, I'm not going to get an error of more than one person has got this job.
No.
Okay.
Step by step. If you want to put there like a list and you can look through the list, and if you want to use like a multiple same level approvers, you can make that as a list. It is going to just talk about the problem and solution. It is not going to tell you like how to implement this. So I will share the code. Any questions, just send me an email.
Great. Thank you so much for doing this. This is great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We're looking for ideas on